We'll be filming a prediction video for the Kentucky and Ole Miss game. Ole Miss this Saturday is going to show Georgia the right way to beat an average team when you have an elite roster, which is by a blowout and not by 1 point. Now, of course, I know the main thing is getting a win, but against teams like Kentucky, it's nice if you have an elite roster to get the win by 20 plus points, which is what Ole Miss is going to do this Saturday. So Ole Miss is at 30-14 all time against Kentucky, and even since Mark Stoops has been there, who I do think is a very good coach. Kentucky still hasn't been able to beat Ole Miss. They've played 3 times, and Ole Miss has won all 3 of them. And at coaching, Ole Miss has the advantage in this game. Lane Kiffin has now become one of the best coaches in college football. And Kentucky's such a trashy football program that even with a good coach like Mark Stoops there, they can still only be an average football program. Kentucky's such a trashy program that even if they hired Nick Saban, I don't think that they could consistently compete for SEC championships. And to let you know how Kentucky is against really good teams, since they've had Mark Stoops, who's the best coach they've ever had, they're a total of 0-16 against Alabama and Georgia, and there's no chance that their record against really good teams is going to change to being better this Saturday. And Lane Kiffin is also, I think, the best football coach that Ole Miss has ever had. And Ole Miss has a huge advantage offensively in this game. Their offense has put up 40 plus points in all 4 games, the most explosive offense in college football. Kentucky's going to have no hope of slowing it down. It's going to be hard for any team to slow it down. And Kentucky's offense has been horrible this year. They've already played 2 SEC teams, and combined in those 2 games, they've scored a total of 18 points and a total of 0 touchdowns. And it's going to be very hard for them to get their first touchdown in an SEC game this week against an elite Ole Miss defense. But Ole Miss has a huge quarterback advantage in this game. Jackson Dart is one of the best quarterbacks in the country now, probably the best quarterback in the SEC. He hasn't thrown for less than 377 yards in a game this season. He's probably going to throw for 4,500 yards this year. And his numbers are unbelievable. He's completed 79.8% of his passes, and he's got a 13.1 yards per throw average. He's the best quarterback Ole Miss has ever had, I think, and I think he's going to be a first round pick. And Kentucky has got Brock Vandagriff, the 4-star quarterback that they brought in from Georgia in hopes of giving them good quarterback play, has been a total bust. He's at one of the worst quarterbacks in the country. So against South Carolina, he was so horrible that he got benched. In that game, he was at 3 of 10 for 30 yards and an interception. And they were still terrible in that game, though, without him. So he was able to keep his starting quarterback job. And then the next week against Georgia, he threw for 114 yards, which is terrible. And he completed 51.9% of his passes, which is terrible. And he averaged up 4.2 yards per throw, which is also terrible. And at wide receiver, Ole Miss has also got a huge advantage over Kentucky. Kentucky has no hope of slowing down the best receiver in America, Trey Harris. I don't know how anyone is going to slow him down. He's averaging between 9 and 10 catches a game this season and 157 yards per game this season. I don't think any receiver has done that up to this point in 4 games. And Ole Miss is loaded with elite wide receivers. They've also got Juice Wells and Jordan Watkins and Caton Lee. And Ole Miss is so much better at wide receiver than Kentucky is that none of Kentucky's wide receivers that would even get playing time if they were at Ole Miss. Kentucky doesn't have a wide receiver that would scare anybody. And then Ole Miss has also got a big advantage at tight end too. One of the best tight ends in the country, Caden Prieskorn, who hasn't even gotten the football much these last 2 games because Ole Miss is so loaded with great pass catchers. And at running back, Ole Miss has got a big advantage in that too. So Henry Parrish is one of the best running backs in college football now. It seems like he's averaging 106.75 yards per game so far this season, and he's averaging 7.5 yards a carry, and he's already found the end zone 7 times this year. And Matt Jones with Henry Parrish makes it one of the best running back combinations in the country. Matt Jones is also averaging a great amount of yards per carry at 6.7. Ole Miss is so deep at running back that Ulysses Bentley, who was the backup running back to Quinshon Judkins last season, who would be the starting running back on most teams, is their number 3 running back right now. And Kentucky doesn't have a running back on their team that would scare anybody. And Ole Miss has the advantage by a lot at the line of scrimmage in this game. They're gonna control the line of scrimmage on both sides. Ole Miss's offensive line is top 5 in the country, I think, and Kentucky's offensive line is solid, but it's not elite. And on the defensive side, Ole Miss has a big advantage over Kentucky too. On the defensive line, Ole Miss has 4 elite players. They've got J.J. McGee, Walter Nolan, Princely Aman and Jared Ivey. Jared Ivey had an ankle sprain against Wake Forest and missed the last game, but he's expected to play in this game. And Kentucky only has one elite defensive lineman, Dion Walker. So 4-1 is a pretty uh, big advantage for Ole Miss. And at linebacker, Ole Miss has the advantage here too. Kentucky does have Jamin Dumas Johnson, the transfer they brought in from Georgia, who is a good linebacker. But Ole Miss has Chris Paul, who's an even better player, one of the best linebackers in the SEC. And then they've also got Sunterrain Perkins at linebacker to make a good uh, a linebacker combination with Chris Paul. And in the secondary, Ole Miss has the advantage here too. Kentucky's secondary is solid, but it's not going to be good enough to be able to slow down the elite passing attack that Ole Miss has. And Ole Miss is loaded with talent in their secondary. Now, they will probably be without 2 of their really good defensive backs in this game. Safety Lewis Moore and cornerback Isaiah Hamilton. But it won't matter in this game because Kentucky doesn't have any passing offense hardly anyway. So My prediction for this game is Ole Miss at 42, Kentucky 13. That will be it with this video, and please subscribe and thanks for watching. And I'll be back very soon. And hotty toddy.